Caitlin Clark, global women's basketball icon, Team USA basketball captain. Napheesa Collier gave an open-ended statement almost similar to a deposition. And finally, just understanding Caitlin Clark as she spoke out and the utilization of her name. We'll talk about that and more today on the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. How we doing, good people? Good to see you back again. Want to talk directly Napheesa Collier. And really, the opening message that I do have for everyone, especially African-American women out there, you're going to have to put your arms around this young lady. She's a child. And what I did is I went back and looked at the statement. A lot of people said, Mike, did you hear the statement? You know, I saw the clips of it, and then I went back and I listened to it again and again and again. And a couple things crossed my mind with Napheesa Collier. Was this a statement or was this a deposition? And you're using words of sustainability and negligence. Those are two key powerful words. And again, we haven't got to the safety. And we talked about Money Mike, Congress, FBI. I think the FBI is already here, right? But with the way she demonstrated it, right? She put a lot of individuals involved in the conversation. And as Cathy Engelbert is the target of the whole entire investigation. However, she also included herself, which in this position here, Napheesa Collier is an owner, right? It's different from a player. And she tied back and brought in her husband, and then also tied back and brought in Unrivaled, and then was demonstrating the safety of what Unrivaled did in the meetings and whatnot. But the point I'm trying to get to here, folks, she just about guaranteed that you're going to court. She just about guaranteed that you're going to end up in federal court because the statement that she made addressed certain issues. And they also asked her in the end, what would be your solution? And she said, I don't know. I would expect her to really be strong about that and really come back and say what she totally felt. The question, too, is going to come down, well, in the world of human resources, we've got probably quite a few people in human resources on here. In the world of human resources, there's protocol that you have to file a grievance. And so now you have to look at how many players filed a grievance about the unsafety of the league, because you can't just announce it without Gwen Jackson filing hearing the grievance and the players union fighting against the league. And that's kind of what we got. But to pick it back up, there was a lot of information released, more than I expected her to say. And when you do that, folks, as I talked to you earlier, but I was surface communicating on the work product doctrine. Everything you say from this point on is going to be included in the work product doctrine. There's no way around it, because now you've opened up her. That wasn't so much of a statement, but a statement of discovery, right? Discovery. Here's the case. So you got a lot of media there, you got a lot of attorneys there, right? And so what they're looking at is saying the league has been negligent, which means we have made you aware, we have grieved you on this process, we have brought this to your attention, and you failed, Cathy Engelbert, you failed to correct the situation. So what the league is saying, this is going to get interesting, folks, because when you get into court, things get a little messy. But totally what Collier is saying is, we brought this to your attention, right? And you didn't do anything about it, so that creates a form of negligence. Now, they're utilizing that to say we brought this to your attention last year, but it wasn't us, it was Caitlin Clark brought it to your attention, you didn't do anything about it. So they're utilizing Caitlin to actually be a part of this. And what was interesting, and I saw some quotes, I don't want to quote on it, but it looks like Collier's agent, and this is where I said players got to be managed, because sometimes players will do some things that are out of this world, right? But players have got to get managed, and she did this without her agent. is what the communication is coming forth. And that's why I'm telling African American, well, you got to put your arms around here, because this is going to court now. It's going to court. She just about guaranteed it's going to court. Now, you have to look at the motive, right? You got to look at the motive here, because there's going to be some motive, and a good attorney is going to look at this and say, well, there's a motive here, Mike. Well, what's the motive? Well, you got another person that owns a business, right? They own a business that is in the same business as the WNBA, and it utilizes the same sponsors, and they are actually players in the WNBA who are signing players away from the league. So that's where, again, but representing the players. Okay, here's where the attorneys have a field day. Do you think you are the best person in the WNBA to represent the players, even though your full autonomy and concentration is on Unrivaled League? See, so the question is going to be to Collier, how are you going to represent and tell the players where you're not focused on the players, you're focused on Unrivaled League? See, so now it turns into a different question, right? From the statement, okay, was that a grievance? Right? Is that statement a grievance? That's something you've already filed to the league. Was that a deposition? Okay, because you really gave the testimony, right? And that's hardcore testimony. It's recorded. I mean, it's heard, it's loud and clear, right? And you also, I'll tell you, another spinner is going to come out of this. A lot of people aren't going to be happy. And I'm going to cut bait on it early, and I'm going to get right to Caitlin, Team USA, because I know what's going on. I said that about a month ago. But you're going to get Stephen A. up in this, right? Because, see, Molly Quorum is part of the UConn Mafia, right? Molly's UConn. And when you deal with somebody that's UConn, they ain't coming off of UConn, right? So you got all of UConn is shaking up the women's basketball world, right? And you're going to get to Molly Quorum, because Molly's been sitting here, and you got ESPN, who has actually been involved in this, right? Now that Collier has brought all this to our attention, and everybody is speaking loudly, now what you've also did is you brought your coach, right? Your coach, Cheryl Reeve, is going to be in a deposition. The only difference now, Cheryl Reeve can't, crash out in a deposition. There's nowhere for you to go. They're going to keep you in there for 8 hours, asking you question after question after question. And then you got Becky Hammond, who's already in litigation, right? And this is where really got Mark Davis got upset. Now she's going to be involved in this litigation over here too. The WNBA is going to be tied up for a while in litigation. All right. The lockout's just beginning. By the time you get to the litigation of this, man, oh man, this one's getting ugly. In the meantime, you got all these leagues popping up, right? All these leagues popping up, and you're going to have a bidding war. You're going to be in a bidding war for players, right? Because now the other leagues are saying, I'm going to be able to give you this amount of money. This thing's going to get crazy. What I'm saying, you're going to have to protect Collier, all right? I'm not going against what she's saying or anything like that, but you got the attorneys are going to have a field day. And here is where you got the conflict of interest, and that's going to come up. They're going to ask you again, do you feel it's a conflict of interest for you to be representing these players in a CBA negotiation, right? Because you're calling foul on Cathy Engelbert. Okay, she knows enough lawyers already, so they're already on the case. This one here has moved ahead of the pace. And now it just got to the point where we're at 30 days. They're going to lock the ladies out. We're going to move forward. But this one is not going to be good. And it's going to take some deep diving, because I didn't expect it. When I saw the clips of it, I said, okay, I get it. Now I've watched it 7 times. I went back, and now the claim, I really didn't see it, but I don't understand. But the agent of Napheesa Collier said, we didn't touch this. And that's why I talked about players got to be managed. But she's not thinking as a player. She's thinking as an owner. So now we found out who the Curt Flood is, right? Who's the Curt Flood of the WNBA, as Curt Flood brought the free agency. It's similar, right? You're talking about money, free agency. But here, you're talking about negligence. The league, what she is stating now is the league knew about it. They didn't do anything about it. They went back to him again and told him about it. They didn't do anything about it. So now they pressured up on leadership, right? Now here's what's going to be hard for Napheesa Collier and the medical doctors that are going to come forth. Because now what you turned it into, folks, you turned this into a game of experts. right? You turn this in a game of medical experts. And Money Mike's been on this for a minute. When you play 3-on-3 full court basketball, there is a higher injury rate in 3-on-3 basketball than there is in 5-on-5 basketball because the players are extension and running. So now they're trying to say all of this was causing injuries by the officials, right? Now, here's the sad part about the officials. The officials carry a personal liability in this as well, right? So if the officials have been notified and warned and were on record that they have been notified, if they ignored that and they continued their negligence, right, everybody's going to be in a deposition, man. A deposition, this case could go on for years, all right? Because now it's like Pandora's box. Pick a target. Now, the target now is Caitlin Clark is a global women's basketball icon. As Money Mike said, it's Team USA captain. That's Caitlin Clark. And what does that mean, folks? That means now is Caitlin, who said in her exit interview, what Caitlin likes to do is kind of slide things under because she doesn't want to make it a big deal. Well, I got some stuff I got to do for USA basketball. And you know what that is? You got to pick a team. You got to pick a team. You got to have the right player at the right time because, again, okay, and then this is going to come up in the deposition, and it's going to come up with USA basketball, and it's going to come up with Cheryl Reeve, and it's going to come up with Brittany Griner. See, all these things now are part of discovery, right? It's part of discovery. So you have one side, you got the plaintiff, right? They're making their claim. That's what Colliers do. But then on the other side, you got the defense. Okay, and the defense is going to bring a whole lot more than people expect, right? Because now you're getting into people's lives, and you're going to look back at people, what conversations were had, right? And when people have certain conversations, now there becomes a motive. See, did you do this for the sake of the goodwill of the men, women, and children, or did you do this in the sake of a financial gain? See, this is where all of this is going to go now, but they lost a bad turn on Caitlin Clark in Team USA basketball. Folks, let me tell you something. That pissed a lot of people off. And I'm not talking about little people. I'm not talking about people who are not. I'm talking about the people who run this country, right? They were pissed, right? Because there's nothing higher or greater than for the players of USA and for the men and women that are serving the country. That's inspiration for them. They love Caitlin Clark. She's representing America, and she's representing America's team. Now, she's a global women's basketball icon, right? It's like the WNBA, really, the shift the focus now. So what you're going to see is the money shift. Now, Money Mike, what are you calling the money shift? The money shift is the money we're going to spend on the WNBA. Now we're going to shift that to Team USA because WNBA is not going to be playing basketball. So there's no need in focusing there. But we've got our commitments, and we've got all of the sponsors are on board as Caitlin is the Team USA captain. And I think the Indiana Fever got 4 players that can play on that team, right? They got 4 players that can play, right? You got Kelsey Mitchell, you got Lexi Hull, and you got Aaliyah Boston. And as I shared before, I think this team is not going to have any members from the old team. I think you're going to get all new members on this team because now they're new players, and America's going to want to see the new players that are coming up. Now, it's real simple, right? Because it's not something you're going to do with Caitlin, where Caitlin's going to be there and you got to be on there and you got to practice. But if you look at the FIBA schedule, and I kind of went over this about a month ago, right? Because if you look at the FIBA schedule, it's designed, okay, for the WNBA players to play. And one of the things they were working on was getting the schedule corrected so the WNBA players can actually play and you can actually see the talent that's going to hit the floor. That's the big picture, folks. The WNBA is a small picture. Global women's basketball, Nike, global icon, Caitlin Clark. Now the focus is the 2028 Olympics, right? And now we have Caitlin has a season where she's going to be able to play with different players and the college players, and we can get back to this being what it was and what it was created for, is for all things being equal, that we can go out there and represent America in the highest fashion. But we have to be selective, and Sue Bird's got to get the training. Sue Bird's knowledgeable enough to run that, but she's active. So all of these players that are coming in. We got great players now, folks. I'm telling you, you're talking about some great players. That's going to be the win that's going to come out of this entire situation. It's going to be exciting, right? Now, finally, utilizing Caitlyn's name without her being involved, utilizing a story without Caitlyn not even knowing about it. Folks, I don't know about you, but that's a little foul play, all right? Because at the end of the day, you're representing that Caitlyn has a certain thought process, but it's not from Caitlyn. And it's the second time. The T-shirts were the first. And so it's kind of, what it does, it kind of dilutes the integrity of the players union, right? Because now the information at the players union, you don't know if it's true, it's false. You don't know if the players met about it or two individuals met about it. That's not good. And that you'll hear more about, but I don't want to get into it, but I want to let you know there's some foul play. The joy for me is the FIBA basketball, Team USA. Caitlyn's the captain. It's time to pick a team. It's time for her to go play. They'll do that when they're ready, but it's going to be a major part over the next 2 years because the Olympics are going to be on our soil and the competition is going to be a little higher. There will be some threat of losses Team USA can take. It's not going to be a cakewalk because all these players have been going overseas playing for years. Well, when you do that, folks, they pay you so much because they want your film. They got to train their players to play like you. And that's how the NBA now is a global game. And the women are about to be a global game. It's going to be nice. I wanted to get back on. All things are possible to those who believe. Napheesa Collier, oh my goodness, was that a deposition? Was that a grievance? Or was that an unrivaled commercial? Caitlin Clark, Team USA, global women's basketball icon. Can't wait to see her play. And Caitlin Clark's name, that's kind of sacred. If it's not, ask Floyd Money Mayweather, because every time Pacquiao uses it, he said it cost him $400 million. We'll see what happens. This is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. We want to thank you for joining. We'll see you soon. This is getting interesting, isn't it?